1989 something around this point. And coincidentally, at that point, I also had a head injury from playing cricket. And so I was looking for a safer alternative, and this became a good excuse for me to come to chess. That's how I came to chess. And also, my elder brother Prakash, he was also a very strong player even by then, but I was not very keen till that point. And then I made the shift from cricket to chess. So that's the background. And then I got good results from a very young age. So I was already like 12 years old at that time, so which is quite late by today's standards. But I'm happy to know that many of you are playing chess for the first time in tournament at this age, so doesn't look as bad. Then I got good results playing in nationals and state championship. I won the Tamil Nadu state under 18 3 times, junior title 3 times, national under 18 2 times, and so on. So success came quite early, and then I became an international master. And around this point, I was trying to become a grandmaster in chess, and I understood that there were many challenges I had to face. And as a player, I had many doubts. I was not knowing whether I'm going in the right direction, doing the right things. And there was no guidance available because back then, India did not have the coaching culture. So everyone was a player themselves, and we had to rely on advice from the senior players. And they were also finding solutions only by trial and error. So most of us were not clear what we were doing is right or wrong, the basic things. And then I started working with some players, and many of them made quick progress. My first student was my wife, Aarti Ramaswamy, and she won the world under 18 championship within 1 year of us working together. So that was a very big result for Indian chess because we got a world title, probably the second or third for us. So it is quite rare back then. And it also inspired a lot of players. It gave a lot of hope to Indian players that we can win international titles at the world level. And then I started working, more players started approaching me to be their trainer. And then that's how the migration happened from being a player to trainer.
That's a very good story. So just to mention, I started playing chess when I was already 18. So 12 is not
so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to know that.
Yeah. So everyone, firstly, a huge welcome to Chess Masterclass with Ramesh Sir, an exclusive masterclass for the participants of Chess Masters Premier League 2023, which is an inter-college online chess tournament hosted by Chess Club IIT Kanpur in collaboration with chesslers.com, with chess learning partner Chessmood and Chess Goodies partner Paramount Deals. Sir, a huge welcome to you as well. We welcome you. We would definitely love you to have you once at our campus at IIT Kanpur as well. Probably next time.
Yeah. This time I couldn't make it. We really would have loved visiting campus. Sure. Okay, so would you like me to show some?
Yes, sir.
Pictures?
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
we can
Whatever is
start.
comfortable. Yes.
So I'm sharing my screen.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. So now I'm not going to take any complex topic now, but something which is practically very useful for all levels of players. Now,
Sure, sir. We can start.
okay, so let me. Okay, so I hope you can see the chessboard, right?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay, so now let me keep some position. So you can just focus on this board, not the other half. Maybe I can make it smaller. Okay, so this part. Okay, so here if you see, now we have the rook and the bishop, and the bishop is in open diagonal, the rook is in open file. So the bishop and rook are pretty good. But what happens when I introduce a pawn on this square f3? Now what happens to the bishop and rook? It becomes passive. So you can say passive or bad bishop, So in chess terminology, we say passive pieces or bad pieces. So let me use the term passive and active for
Sure, sure.
negative and positive. Yeah. So because of this one pawn, these two pieces are negatively impacted, right? Now let me move this to one file to the left. Now here again the bishop and rook are passive because the pawn is blocking the path, but this is slightly better in compared to the previous situation. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. And now if I move it further to the left, now the bishop and rook are still blocked by the pawn, but at least now they have more space, right? So this is slightly better. So we can learn two things from these examples. One is our pieces become passive if they are blocked by our own pawns. So when you are playing a game, just see to it that your piece's path is not blocked by your own pawns. This is one. And the second learning is, even among the bad pieces or passive pieces, there can be three categories. One, here it is very bad, right? And here, let us say slightly bad. Medium, let's say, and this is very slightly bad. Okay, so three categories. So these two things we can learn from this. Now, in the next situation, I replace the pawn with a knight. Now what happens? Again, the bishop and rook are blocked by our own knight. But in this case, the knight can move easily. In comparison to a pawn, it's easy to move the knight. And the knight is not a bad piece. The knight is a good piece. It is not blocked by anyone. The knight is a good piece, but the bishop and rook are passive. So the second category is, if we block our piece's path with our own pieces, it is not healthy. It's not good. So try to avoid this as well. Now the third situation, now let me put two black pawns in these two squares. Now what is happening? The knight is not able to go forward, right? It is restricted by these two pawns. So the two pawns are restricting the mobility of black's knight, white's knight, right? So as a result, the knight becomes a passive piece. So from this, what we can learn is opponent's pawns can restrict or control our knight. So whenever your opponent makes a pawn move, something like this, just ask yourself, as a result, any of your knight is getting affected, its mobility, its range. Okay, just pay attention to this after every pawn move by the opponent. Now, in the next instance, I'm replacing black's pawn with a white pawn in a different square. And here again, you see the knight is not able to move freely forward. But in this case, our knight is not hampered by opponent pawn alone, but it is our own pawn creating some issues for our knight's mobility, right? And in the third instance, I'm removing opponent pawn and I'm keeping our own pawn. And here again, you see the knight's mobility is restricted, but here it is our own pawn being the culprit. So the broad lesson is, a knight can become a bad knight or a passive knight, either because of our own pawns or because of opponent pawns or in combination. Got it? So the knight usually gets restricted by pawns. So we have to keep our knights in a manner where it is not restricted by either our or our opponent pawns. So this is the other factor. Now let us take this instance. Now here the knight is attacking the pawn and the black knight is defending the pawn, right? So one is playing an attacking role, the other is playing a defensive role. So in chess, generally, the pieces that play the attacking role are considered active, and the pieces that play a defensive role are considered passive. Okay, so generally, we have to keep our pieces active as possible and not give them defensive roles. So generally, defensive pieces are passive. So I've given 4 examples. One, don't block our own piece with our pawns. Second, don't block our own pieces with our own pieces. Third category, a knight should not be restricted either by our pawns or our opponent pawns. And the fourth, don't keep the pieces defensive. Okay, and final one. Now let me add few more pieces. So if you see the black pieces, they are defending the pawn, passive. White pieces attacking the pawn, active. Now let me add one more unit. So the white pieces are all active. Black pieces, they are all passive. Now let's say black to play, and black plays this pawn move. Now what happens? The three pieces, they all become passive just because of one pawn move. Can you agree that now these pieces don't look as good as before when the pawn was on d7? Right? You can feel that, right? You can sense it. Why? So from this we can learn one principle, which is if your piece is attacking a pawn, so the white pieces are attacking a pawn, and the attacked pawn is defended by a pawn, then the attacking pieces become passive. So you see, for no fault of us, our good pieces, they become bad pieces, right? Because of a pawn move. So we have to pay attention to this as well. So here I have explained how to identify passive pieces. Okay. So in the opening, what we generally have to do, we have to develop our pieces as quickly as possible. And once we reach middle game, and when we are hurriedly developing our pieces in the opening phase, what happens? Sometimes the pieces don't land in the best possible squares. We have to make some compromises. And one of the compromises can be from whatever conditions I explained just now. So what could happen in the opening phase? Some of our pieces will land in passive squares, would have become passive. Then what we do in the middle game, one of the things many players complain, I don't know how to make a plan in the middle game. So it's a common complaint with many players. So my suggestion would be, you don't have to make any plans in the middle game. Instead, you can simply identify a bad piece in a position and improve it. For this, you don't need any plan. You just need to know how to identify a bad piece. That is the part I have explained already. And subsequently, once you have identified a passive piece in your position, find a way to improve them. Okay, make it better. Now, if you can improve the position of placement of one piece, it has a positive influence over the position. Okay, so the whole position becomes, it gets benefited. Okay, so let me show few examples and you can participate as well. Okay, just a moment. Okay, someone has drawn all this stuff. How do we get him?
Just give me a second, sir. I'll stop it. And,
Okay.
just give me a second. I'll take care of that.
Looks like some 5th standard kids are babies.
Come on, guys. You're pure chess players. Come on.
Okay.
Sir, I guess they should not be able to do that now. I'll check one second.
What baby is doing this is fine. No issues. Okay. So now let me give few examples and you can have a look at the position and tell me from black's perspective, which is the worst piece. So we call it as improving the worst piece. So when you are playing in a game, in any tournament or casually, just keep asking yourself, do I have a bad piece? And if you can identify, then can I do something about it? You can mention in the chat which piece you think is not so good for black. So I already explained how to identify the bad pieces, right? And one more thing I can add, like undeveloped pieces in the opening is also bad. Okay, so the rook is the bad piece. Why? Because it is not developed. right? So it is still in the initial square. It is not yet developed. So now the question is, how can, so there are two things. One is the diagnosis, identifying a bad piece, which is only half the job done. The other important part is how do we make it better, right? So we have to consider all the squares which the rook can move, right? The rook can move to various squares. Now we have to go through each square in our mind and try to find the best possible square. Yeah, Ansh, I will come to that.
Yeah.
So quickly, we can reject some squares. These three squares, I think we can, maybe this also, probably this as well. So these squares we can reject quickly. Why? Let me explain the logic. Here it's just hiding behind the pawn. Here too, hiding behind the pawn. And if you come rook c8, the bishop is controlling the square. Someone suggested rook c8 in the chat, but it is controlled by the bishop. So this is not possible as well. So we can eliminate these three squares using logic, right? And this and this, they look passive, right? They don't seem to have much future. So the squares that remain are 1, 2, and 3. So if you see what I am doing, how my mind is working, there is some logical thinking involved, right? I am seeing certain possibilities, and when there are many possibilities, I am not losing heart. For many players, they can get scared. They may say, "Oh my God, I have to analyze so much," right? It can be overwhelming for some, but I don't get overwhelmed when the amount of work I have to do is on the higher side. Okay, so when you know you can do many things, you have to be actually happy because you're not in a position where everything is bad. That's a worse place to be in, isn't it?
Yep.
So we have these three possibilities. Now choose one square. Yeah, so many of you got it right. So the rook should go here. So what we did here is we simply identified, asked ourselves, which is the bad piece in my position, who is not contributing, and then I'm finding a way to improve him. Now, what can the rook do from this point? One, the rook can go here and put more pressure on this backward weak pawn. This is a possibility. The second, it is also keeping an additional pressure, an eye on the king side h5 weak pawn as well. So it's a multi-purpose move. Generally, the strong players, they prefer to play moves which give them more possibilities, more options, multiple ideas, rather than playing one move with one idea. Okay, but at the lower level, generally the players prefer to play one move with one idea, keeping things as simple as possible. So this is also something you need to take note of and make appropriate change in your mind. Okay, so in the game h6 happened. So one of you asked, should white not worry about, black not worry about white's h6 move, because it is undermining the pawn support to the knight and also trying to weaken the king position. So how can we react here as black? Yeah, Dhruv, you're right. So he played knight g6. So in chess, there is a principle called the drawback principle. Now, what does it mean? So now the pawn is on h5 and the opponent played the move h6, right? So whenever your opponent makes a move, you can ask two things to yourself. One, the good side. We have to be curious about the good side, the reason why he played a move, right? There'll be some reason why he makes a move. So we should be curious about that. So why did he play this move? Okay, so that can give us some information. So he's trying to undermine the support to the pawn, weaken black's king position. And as I mentioned, there was some pressure on the pawn. So that also get resolved. So this is the good side of the opponent move. We should also ask ourselves, is there a negative side to the opponent move? So generally what happens whenever a pawn move is made, the adjacent square becomes weak. Okay, so let me explain. So let us say he plays this move. Okay, white plays this pawn move. Now, when the pawn is here, it is controlling these two squares, right? So these two squares are under control by the pawn. And when the pawn moves, what happens? It loses control on these two squares, isn't it? You can see it, right?
Yes, sir.
Squares, it has lost control. So now this pawn can become weak. Now this rook suddenly has got a good square available, right? So whenever a pawn move is made, the adjacent squares, the squares next to it, they become weak. Okay, so similarly, now when he plays h6, the adjacent square became weak. So we should also, this is the negative side of the opponent move. So what I'm trying to stress here is when opponent plays a move, we have to see it, we have to get a complete picture. We have to understand the opponent move in its entirety. And how do we do that? By being curious about what are the good things it is trying to achieve, and is there a negative side to the opponent move, the drawback. Okay, so the drawback is the g6 square, and with knight g6, we are taking control of that square, which was not possible earlier. The pawn was on h5. And now we are having 3 times pressure on f4, and there is only 2 protection. So he has to do something about this, right? Now, if he takes, then we can take, and this pawn is under attack, isn't it? And we can also bring the rook again and create an attack. Suppose you come here, I can do like this. Okay, on the next move, I can always win the pawn by capturing it. Suddenly you see this rook, which was on a8, now it has come all the way and it is attacking the king. So the transformation is huge, isn't it? So this is the advantage when we learn to identify bad piece and improve. Maybe I can show one more example. Fine. So again, it's black to play. Let's see. So now if you see from white's perspective, these 3 pieces, they are still in their original squares, not developed yet. And for black, these 4 pieces still in their original squares, not developed yet. And generally this is not healthy. We have to develop our pieces ASAP. So from this point, and it's black to play, our priority should be how can I quickly develop my pieces? Okay, so try to ask yourself which of the pieces you can develop and how. And we can use logic. Now, regarding the bishop, now the bishop can move to any of these squares, right? You cannot go to h3 because the bishop is controlling. You can move the bishop to any of these squares, but if you move any of these squares, there is a drawback. What is that?
So the b7 pawn falls.
Yeah, the b7 pawn falls. Suppose I move my bishop, he can grab this pawn, and this also becomes weak, right? So what we do, we eliminate the bishop moves. Okay, so this is the easy way to think. So when you have, so first identify what are the things that can move, and then start eliminating. And whatever is left, that is the thing we need to try to make it work. Second, we can eliminate the rook move. One, for this reason, right? We are getting into a voluntary pin, isn't it? It allows bishop c6. And the second, does it look like we are developing the rook? Does this move seriously look like a development? We are just hiding. Instead of hiding behind this pawn, we are hiding behind a different pawn. That's it. Right? So hiding behind the pawn is not rook's job. So we can eliminate the rook as well. So 1, 2 eliminated. Right? 2 out of 4 eliminated. So that leaves the queen and the bishop. Now king d7 looks horrible. So king f8. It makes sense if you feel my king can come under danger in the center. So I want to take it to a corner safety. If you feel that way, you can move the king. It makes sense. But does it look like white has any attack on the king? either from the front or from this side or from this side. Do you see any attack on the white black king? Not really, right? So we don't have to worry too much about the king at this point. So, but we can eliminate these three undeveloped pieces. We have very clear reason. So that means we have to develop the queen. Now queen, we see all the possible options. So from this, tell me which queen moves you like. Now you have to make a list. Generally what happens at the lower level, they see one move, they get attracted to that move, and they will convince themselves that is the best move. You understand the thinking process? Just because they see something, they will start liking it. Once they like it, they will convince it is the best. Okay, it's like we will brainwash ourselves.
So very honestly, that's what I do. I see a move. My all calculation is based on justifying that move. And
Yes.
if that doesn't work, I'll play something random.
Exactly same.
Everywhere, it's the human mind. Human mind, it works like this. Not only in chess, like our biases, our prejudices. We all think we have free will. We all think we are capable of analyzing and taking independent decisions, but in my view, 99.9% are not capable. We are taking decisions only to justify our likes and dislikes, our biases. And through chess, we can actually learn to come out of this mess. So it doesn't matter what I like or dislike. I should be able to keep it aside. I should just be able to take decision based on the requirement of the position. What the position requires, I should deliver. Even what I deliver doesn't like. You can imagine like what a chef has to do or what a server in a restaurant has to do, right? He gives a big menu to the customer, maybe let's say 5-page menu, and it will have all kinds of dishes, but the server or the chef may not like all the dishes, right? He may like some of them, he may not like some of them. He will have his own preferences. But when the customer says, give me ABC, you just have to give ABC. It doesn't matter whether the chef or the server likes ABC or not, right? He cannot say, I don't like B, so you better take F. So there, whatever the customer wants, the server or the chef has to deliver. Similarly, in chess, whatever the position demands, we should learn to deliver, not what we like or dislike. Okay.
Sir, in the chat, there is one question, not a question, basically a session. Bhardwaj Jampu from IIT Kanpur itself, he's the captain of our team. He has written that Queen C7, Bishop E6, and then castles looks like the best possible way to complete development. But after that, he has also written only problem with Queen C7, D4, Bishop F4 will come with a tempo. Better to keep the king in the center, play Queen C7, Bishop E6, and Rook D8 instead of long castles.
Yes, I saw the message. It's a very logical thinking. Like he's thinking nicely ahead. He's anticipating that D4 can happen, and then followed by Bishop F4 hitting the queen. So he's anticipating, which is a good thing. This is the skill we need to acquire. So my point is, once we realize that the human mind, it works in a way, it tries to convince itself. Once it agrees with something, then it will start twisting facts to prove, hence I am right. Okay, so once we realize this tendency we have to fight against this. So one simple way to fight against this is, the moment you see a move and you are attracted by it, you simply keep it as option A. Okay, and once you know it is option A, you start looking for option B. And once you find option B, you start looking for option C. And then you start looking for option D. So here what we are doing, we are searching for possibilities. Okay, so this searching quality is very important in chess. You force yourself to keep searching, and then you will reach a point where I've exhausted everything. I can't come up with option C. Only option A and B I can see. So now you have two options, and then you come up with some logic to convince which one is good or bad. So in the game, queen went to A5. So the logic is why we wanted to put the queen here, because we wanted to support the pawn so the bishop can go out somewhere. right? That's why we wanted to put the queen here. But this is a defensive role, and we already saw the bishop can come with tempo. So for this reason, he plays queen a5. Now it's like he's interested in this pawn, but I don't think he's really interested in the pawn. Now we are again not able to develop the bishop because the pawn is hanging. Now he put the queen here. Now this looks very harmless, but it has a very serious threat. The queen is coming here, and if the bishop moves, queen checkmate. It's a checkmate. So suddenly you see the queen took a commanding post on the king side, and there is a serious threat here. And more importantly, the character of the position has changed drastically. And in the game, he played this to give himself a square. He played here, here, now g5, and he lost very quickly. The next move is this, followed by checkmate.
Wow.
And he could not come up with a defense. He played here, and he resigned. So quickly, the game finished in black's favor because of this idea. And this is a very powerful idea. There's no good defense available. Suppose you come here, I come here. Now the threat is this. Suppose you do something, I put here, and it's made. It's a very serious threat. So just by improving one piece, we could create so much problems for the opponent. Okay, so I explained how to identify passive pieces and how to improve them. But to master this topic, we need to see many more examples. Okay, so I also try to explain how to make a list, right? Typically the human mind works. We see something, we like something, and we want to prove we are right. Instead of taking that kind of an approach, we should be more curious about the position itself. Whatever it offers, we have to try to bring all those facts out. So this approach is slightly time consuming, but worth it. That's my view. Okay, so maybe I can take some questions.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir,
sure.
definitely.
So before we go ahead with the questions, actually, we have our alumnus, and the founder of Chess Club IIT Kanpur. He has texted me, "Great! Once I did an online session with sir and instantly improved my puzzle rating score on chess.com by a couple of 100 points. So have fun, everyone."
Thank you.
Okay. So, sir, firstly, I have one question, not onto the session, but a general question. For example, what you currently see in India, you yourself are the coach of Prag, and we have Gukesh, we have Nihal, we have Arjun, and we also have Ronak. 5 players. Is this the dream Olympiad team that you will coach next time for the gold? First, and secondly, yesterday we asked Gukesh about how the camaraderie is, how they are friends as well, but as well as rivals on the board. So your thoughts on it?
Okay, so regarding me being the coach for the next Olympiad, I very much doubt it. I have already informed the federation that I would not want to be coach for the Indian team anymore, kind of retiring from that job. There are many other capable coaches out there, so I'm sure they will take good care of the team. And the second part, yes, the 5 names you mentioned, they are all still in their teens, and they are good friends with each other. But in the last 1 year, especially after the lockdown, especially in the last 2022 and the 2023, what we have seen so far, it is gradually becoming rivalry as well, intense rivalry as well. And since the rating is going up steadily, and they cannot play in open tournaments, so they have to play more in invitation closed tournaments where the number of participants is very limited. So under the circumstances, most of the tournaments are happening in Europe, and the organizers, they are becoming very choosy. So some of the players are not getting the invitation. All the 5 definitely are not going to get invitation in these tournaments. So someone is going to pay the price. So the rivalry is there, but it's good for good for India, but I believe we have probably reached 30% of our potential, maybe less. I strongly
30% or
believe,
less.
I strongly feel India is capable of much more. With good effort, we can do much more than what we have done. But I would say it's a good beginning.
Yeah. So, sir, the first question for you that we have from our participants, we have Arkadipto Datta. He's the captain of BITS Hyderabad campus, and he's a big fan of yours. And he literally troubled me that he wants to ask you something. So here it is, Arkadipto.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Good evening, sir. I am Arjunerigaisi. As Prem mentioned, I am the captain of BITS Hyderabad chess team. I would first of all like to thank you for whatever you are doing for Indian chess and raising all these talents. First you raised Pragnananda, now you are working with, I guess, Ilam Parthi. He is also improving at rapid pace. So sir, my question to you is like quite a few of us get stuck at around 2200, 2300 on leeches, or similarly 1600 to 2000 feet day. So how to improve and get to the next level? How to practice? What books to read? How to solve tactics and improve? And what kinds of studies to solve? Can you just tell a bit about that?
Yeah. So it's
Before sir goes on, plug in. Please buy sir's course on Chessable. Improve your chess calculation. That will definitely boost your rating.
okay. To be honest, I wouldn't recommend my own book because it is for a slightly higher level. It's more difficult to solve. So there are many better books available at this level. So regarding chess improvement, like you are all in IIT, so you know, like it's not easy to get into an IIT, right? And without studying, do you think it is possible to get into IIT? Like when
No,
you were at school, you were like, you know how it was, right? When you are trying to get into IIT, how much time and effort you have put in. So similarly, no, any area, any field you want to excel, it requires kind of commitment, and time and effort should be invested. That is the first thing. There are no shortcuts. Now, so you have to put some time and effort into your chess improvement. There is no going around it. So how much time each of you have to take a call? It can be anywhere from 1 hour to 3 hours per day. And if you are very ambitious, even more. So, but 1 hour at least, it will be good if you can invest time in your chess improvement. And the second thing is, once you are decided, I want to improve my chess strength. Now, most players probably we keep playing blitz games online, right? But it does not improve our chess strength as much. It's kind of, generally they say practice makes perfect, but in my view, practice only makes things permanent. So if I'm doing something incorrectly, and repeatedly I do that incorrectly, it doesn't make me perfect. I'll just become good at making it incorrectly, right? So it would be good if you can spend few days of every week, apart from playing online, which is also fine, but also in doing some study. So one series of books I would recommend is Yusupov series of book, Build Up Your Chess, Boost Your Chess, and Chess Evaluations. So in each of this topic, he has published 3 books, so 9 volumes in total. So you can consider getting this series of books. That is one. The second is you can study classics. By classics, I mean games of past world champions like Alekhine, Capablanca, Fischer, Botvinnik, and so on. So if you can study games from the past, because modern day chess, we are heavily influenced by technology, and it's not totally human chess at the higher level. Suppose if you see Carlsen's game or Pragnananda's game, the first few moves are decided by the computers, not by the players themselves. The computer suggests these moves and they are simply repeating it. So if you want to understand human way of thinking, it's good to study games from the past where they were thinking like humans. And at our level, our opponents are also thinking like humans, which means they will be making the human mistakes. So if you study classics, you can understand and identify what are the typical human mistakes and how to punish them, how to exploit them. So this can be learned very well by studying classics. And the third thing I would strongly recommend is to solve plenty of puzzles. So there are many websites, Leechess, chesstempo.com, chess.com. There are many websites which give puzzles. You can go to those websites and solve those puzzles. But while solving puzzles, my suggestion, don't move pieces while solving. Try to get the complete answer in your head. Once you are sure you got the complete answer, not just the first move. At this level, most players think if they get the first move right, they got the solution. No, it's like, I want to build a bridge. It doesn't mean the bridge is built, right? So if you just get the first move, it doesn't mean you got the answer. So that is just a guesswork. So try to get the complete answer in your head. And if it is correct, then you will improve very quickly. So solving puzzles, studying classics, and this series of books should cater to your requirement, I believe.
Sir, can you elaborate a bit about how to study, like how should I approach while studying a World Champions game?
Okay, so when you are trying to study, let's say, a World Champions game, so first thing is you have to be curious. Now, you should not think, if I see this game, I will improve. No, just seeing games will only give you knowledge. Now, knowledge is not sufficient in itself. It is like books in a library. Okay, you may have many books, but if you don't read any of these books, you don't get any benefit out of it. So just seeing games is not very helpful. It just gives us some knowledge, some information. So it's very important to study. So analyze. So you have to contemplate, you have to think how these decisions are taken, what is the logic behind the decisions. So my suggestion would be, you can keep, if you are studying, let's say, Alikin's games, then you can say every day I'm going to see 3 Alikin games. And for 1 month, if you see 3 Alikin games every day, you'd have seen close to 100 Alikin games in a month. And next month, you can take another player, maybe Fischer, and see 3 games of Fischer every day. So 100 games of Fischer. So like this, you can keep moving from one player to another, and watch out for how they are taking decisions, how they are thinking. Are they taking risk or they are not taking risk, and how much they are calculating. Observe how they are managing time. Okay, from the classics, it's tough to get the information about the time management, but about the decisions, try to think. So my suggestion is, after, let's say, if you're taking a Fischer's game and you want to study that, put yourself in Fischer's shoes and try to find his moves. Maybe after move 5 or move 6, start finding the move yourself, like you are playing the game. And then when you come up with your move, okay, I would have played in this move in this position, then see what Fischer played in the same position. Now, if the moves are matching, you can move to the next move. But if the moves are not matching, instead of getting upset, you can ask yourself, okay, I know why I want to play my move. You have seen some good things. But what you should be curious is why Fischer played the move he played. He liked that move for some reasons, right? He considered that to be the best move for some reason. Now ask yourself what that reason could be, and try to give yourself 3 reasons why the move played by Fischer is better. Okay, you can say because of A, B, C, I think this move is good. So this way you are learning something, how Fischer is taking decision. So this is a very good way. You can replace Fischer with any name you want, any strong player. This is a very good way to see chess. So first, put yourself in the player's situation, come up with a move, compare it with what was played. If it is not matching, try to come up with 2 or 3 reasons why the move played by the stronger player is better. This way you can improve very fast.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Just a small follow-up to him. For example, as you mentioned about classics, just one question: how relevant is engine analysis for our level?
No, my suggestion to not get addicted to engine analysis at this level. So the engines, it gives you a feel-good factor like a drug, but it doesn't improve your health.
Okay.
Sir, a question related to this in the chat from DU, and I don't know what the real name is. At what point do you think it's important to start calculations?
Calculation is like breathing, right? So which time of day we have to breathe? So throughout the day, as long as we are alive, right? So calculation is something like it goes throughout the game. Only how deep we have to see. In complicated situations, you try to go deeper. In simple situations, you don't go deeper. For example, the position in front of us, it doesn't look like an attacking position or anything, right? In initial position. But here also we are analyzing. We see this move, we see this move, and then we reject the bishop moves because the pawn is hanging, right? So this is also calculation. So this calculation you have to do throughout the game, but only the depth, how deep you have to go, how many branches you have to see, more complicated, more deep, less complicated, you just have to see 1.5 move ahead, sufficient.
So next question we have is from Jampu Bharadwaj. He is a student of IIT Kanpur and the captain of IIT Kanpur chess team. Jampu, you can unmute and ask.
Yeah, I have unmuted. Hello, sir. Good to have you with us. It's been a privilege experience, especially this position, which mesmerized me a little here. Queen A5, Queen H5. That's a beautiful maneuver, actually. So I have started my chess journey around 18 years of age as well. And over the past 10 years, my graph has been linear. And more or less, I have been a student of the game. And in over the past 2 years in our university, there is a huge chess boom. I feel that is going to take place. And not only in terms of organization of the events, the IIT Chess Club has been organizing great many events that has improved our quality and the enthusiasm. But to improve general quality of the game as well, we are having our own training sessions so that people get the best out of themselves. So my question to you is, when you have made this transition from a player to a teacher, so you must have had some motivation on why to take such a role and how it benefits the players around you, the energy, and overall we all love the game to great extent. We playing at this level. So how has that impacted you, and how has that made you as a better player, and in which aspects of the game have you improved further because of taking this role as a coach?
Yeah, so there are many questions in this. One, why I wanted to become a trainer. I already explained, like when I was a player, I had many questions and there were not many answers available. And I understood that when I was interacting with my friends and other players, I noticed that everyone has these doubts like me. I'm not unique in that aspect. And they are all looking for good answers, good guidance, and which was not available. And when I got this first opportunity to work with Aarti Ramaswamy, and the very next year she became world under 18 champion. Suddenly I realized like maybe I can be better as a coach than as a player. And then I started working with more players. Then I could see that it had a very positive impact on the player's strength. Just the feeling that someone is there caring for you, someone wants to help you, guide you, it gives a tremendous boost of confidence to the player. And if you can do a good job out of it, you can actually make a very good impact on the strength of the player and the confidence result. Everything gets positively impacted. So that's how I became a trainer. And I soon understood that I cannot be both a player and a trainer at the same time, because the amount of time I have to invest in making myself better as a trainer was huge, because I have to create my own material to teach, and I have to identify which topics I have to teach. So basically I was starting from a scratch. I had no experience or a manual to study and become a trainer. So I have to reinvent wheel, so to say. So I have to identify which topics I have to teach first. There are many topics and that can be taught. So which topic I should teach first, how I should teach, how I should show the examples, how I should explain a concept. So everything I had to invent. And I started working with more and more players, and then everything started falling in place. So now I have a lot of experience and I have everything in place. So it's very easy to do the job now than it was initially. And as I mentioned, it is very important to initially focus on calculation. So whatever level you are, if you want to have a good jump, if you can calculate 2-3 moves ahead, what is going to happen in the future, if you can foresee it to some extent, then that makes a big impact. That's why I suggested study classics and also to solve puzzles. So solving puzzles is a very healthy way to improve your game. So how have you tuned your methods? So I give a lot of importance to psychology. So this, I think, is something very vastly neglected by trainers from the West. They don't give too much importance to psychology. But how I see is, when we play a move, it's not just a move, it is the consequence of a thought process. So you are thinking in a certain way and coming up with a certain move. So if I am not happy with the move, I should change the way I'm thinking. So I focus on the thinking process as a whole and try to help them make the necessary changes.
And what are the most common habits that you see in top players like Gukesh, Pragyana, that your influence would have changed? So so I see a lot of players playing a lot of games and studying less of the game. So how do you, what are the kinds of habits at the highest level that you see needed changing from players?
Sir, along with that, a small follow-up, a slightly light-hearted question. What are their most annoying habits that you want them to change as soon as possible?
No, it keeps evolving. Now, if you see, if you take iPhone 7, it is not a perfect phone, right? But
Yeah.
when it was released, it was like amazing, like, because it is much better than iPhone 6, and there is nothing else available in the market which is better than iPhone 7. But now when iPhone 14 has come, if you see iPhone 7, you will see like, what? I can't do this, and so heavy, screen is so less. You'll find million faults, right?
Yeah.
So as the technology also advances, evolves, so does a human player. So when we are beginner, we have some issues, and then when we learn the game, some issues vanish, but they are replaced by more complex issues. So as we evolve into a better player, the weaknesses also evolve. The problems, or whatever we are doing incorrectly, it also changes, it also evolves, and it becomes more complex. For example, in Prag's case, also Gukesh, also Nihal, what I have noticed is the time management. They are very poor in time management, is my view, and they're also paying the price once in a while because of the poor time management. But when I discuss this with Prague, when I ask him like, why did you think so much for this particular move, and then his typical answer is he wants to be a perfectionist, try to play the best move and play it, and that requires a lot of effort. He has to consider many possibilities, he has to recheck his analysis for mistakes, and he has to evaluate it correctly. So there are many processes involved, and that takes time. So if I'm going to try to speed up my decision making process, then either in the evaluation or in my analysis, I may have made some mistake, made some compromises. So I don't want to make that compromise, so I'm taking more time. So this is the explanation. So you see, the problem is quite complex. But what happens when they take too much time, get into time trouble, inevitably they are put in a position where they have less time to take decisions, and they want to play perfect chess. Now with less time, you cannot play perfect chess, and they'll be forced to make compromises in the quality. So the challenge is to make how much compromise you can make in the quality before you become desperate, right? When you had time on the clock, some compromise you have to make on the quality. At the same time, you don't compromise too much, and this is not an easy problem. No easy formula available for this.
Sir,
Yeah.
we'll take a couple of questions more. Next,
Yeah.
it's DU. I guess it should be Supriyo, but DU, please ask your question.
And please, just restrict yourself to one question each. We have limited time with sir.
Yeah.
Okay, hello sir. So my name is Aditya. Sir, actually at my engage, I used to do coaching with the international master. So I and him used to sit together and practice together for a tournament example. So, but now due to COVID, after COVID, I I do all the time in online. So actually I'm addicted. Like I think that when I play board games, leeches, I get more practice. But when I go play tournament like in Delhi Open, I get so frustrated, but I can't think long due to it's a long game, and I can't make the perfect move. So it's becoming very irritated, and I can't score points. So is there any help?
So the solution is very simple, and if you ask this question to yourself, you will find the answer very easily, not very difficult. So one, um, you are addicted to playing blitz games or bullet games, shorter
Yes,
time
sir.
control,
Yes,
and
sir.
when you do that so often, you get used to that, thinking very quickly. And suddenly, when you play in a tournament and your opponent is sitting and thinking for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you'd have played maybe 15 games in that time online, right? So it looks like watching a test match, right?
Yes.
But if you're so one, if you are playing blitz and bullet is so important for you, simply reduce your expectation from practical tournaments. Don't have high expectations, because our interest is something else. But
No,
if
no,
you
actually, my
want to
interest
do,
is in classical tournament, but due to COVID, I can't play
I
any
understand.
tournament. So,
I was coming to
yeah.
that. So if that is not the case, you are playing blitz and bullet for fun, and your main interest is you want to do well in standard time control, then in standard time control should be your priority, and there you are given more time and you can think for as long as you want. You are given that liberty. So at home you have to teach yourself to think. Okay, so instead of playing a lot of bullet games, you can cut down on that. Maybe you can say every day I'll play maximum 3 to 5 games, not more. So you can reduce the shorter time control games. Maybe play 15-minute game or a half an hour game, 1 game or 2 games per day. Or you don't even have to play. You can just take some book and study chess. So where you are forcing yourself to think and take decisions.
So like
Sir, a very
suggestion from
similar
anything.
question to this actually somebody has asked in the chat. That is, he's an intermediate level plus around $1,700, $1,800. Should he play more rapid games online, or should he spend more time studying tactics and puzzle solving them?
Okay,
Just
so
a quick answer.
yeah, so when you play also you learn. When you solve puzzles, study chess also you learn. So if you are just having fun, whatever you like you can do, whatever makes you happy you can do. But if you want overall growth, you should not be doing only one activity. So you have to mix up. So some days you play games, some days you solve puzzles, some days you study classics. You have to mix. If you restrict only to playing or only to solving, then you will get only few benefits. It's good to mix up things.
Next we have Shreyal. Shreyal, you can unmute and ask.
Hello, sir. I wanted to ask how to select the best move from multiple candidate moves when each of them have their own advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, so as you rightly mentioned, every move will have its own advantages and disadvantages, at least most of the moves. In rare situations, there are no conflict. One move is best and that's it. So when you have choices, we have to realize the possibility for choosing the wrong move is high. Making a mistake is high. When we have less choice, it's hardly very difficult to make a mistake. So usually the mistakes happen when we are given choices. So one of the things strong players do, generally they give options to the opponent and they say you have option ABC, now choose one. So usually they go wrong when we have choices. So first thing, when you realize you have options, become more careful but not stressed. You just have to become more alert, and then you can use elimination process I just explained at the beginning. So you can, if you have ABC option, try to eliminate one from the three. Now it becomes only A and B. And once you have A and B, try to eliminate one more. And then you have only one, you can play that. Now to eliminate this, we can use two tools. One, you can use logic and common sense, or you can use some calculation and prove one move is bad and you can eliminate it. So the process of elimination you can use. Now these things, I've done some YouTube videos also. Maybe you can check it in my YouTube channel
Sure.
on these topics if you want
Sir,
to go.
if you have just 5 more minutes, actually, we have two more people who have asked questions, but we have not been able to cover them. Can we do that?
Yes, we.
Sure.
Sure.
So next, Sai, please unmute and ask your question to sir.
Sir, very honored to have you here. My question is that as we go up the rating ladder, we need a solid opening repertoire. Because in 1600, 1700 ratings, it doesn't matter much what you play in the opening as long as you play well in the middle games. So, but there's no, I didn't find a solid way to learn many openings. So, is there a good way to study that?
Okay. What is your rating? What is your rating, Sai?
Sir, on chess.com, it's about 2000. On leeches, it's 2300.
Okay, so I'm not sure how it translates to FIDE rating. But okay,
1500
as you
FIDE.
mentioned, 1500 FIDE. Okay, fine. So at this level, the opening, rather than memorizing openings, what I would recommend, there are few ways to learn the opening. One, I would not recommend buying big opening books and trying to learn them. There are just too many openings. And for each opening, if you buy a big book or a big database, it's going to be very hard. So my recommendation, you can consider getting Encyclopedia of Chess Openings. It's called ECO, Encyclopedia of Chess Openings. You get the latest version. And from that, it'll be like few pages. And if you can go through those few pages multiple times, you can memorize it very quickly. And at this level, if you can just memorize some initial 10 moves or 12 moves in every opening you play, that is good enough. Not too many branches, but the relevant ones. So for this, Encyclopedia of Chess Openings is a good starting point. If you want to learn from computers, you can just follow a good player who plays your opening. So suppose you play Sicilian Knight off with black, just put the position and search in ChessBase if you have ChessBase, and you will get many games. Identify one player who is playing this opening consistently and search for his games, create a separate database of that player, see all the games, try to memorize and copy whatever move orders he is choosing. So copying a strong player's move order is another way. Encyclopedia of Chess Openings is another way, or randomly choose 10 good players games in the opening you want to learn and see that game multiple times and try to remember. This is good enough.
Okay, so thank you. Sir, also in this question, after Queen F5, can't white play King F1 and King G1?
Yeah, so Queen A5, you have to worry about this. So if you play, I can take the pawn.
Oh.
Right?
So next we have Ansh. He has been waiting for, he had asked his question in chat quite long back, but we missed him. So Ansh, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hello, sir. Pleasure
Yes.
to ask this question to you. Actually, there are two questions one that I asked, and there is one more question that is responsible for a lot of this time. That is, like, I have suffered a lot when converting better positions into winning games, and I have observed this that we become a lot more conservative, want to say much more safer lines, and we are not playing very accurately during that's my problem, that I'm not playing very accurately in winning positions. So how to cope up with that?
Sorry, the voice was not very clear. So if I heard correctly, one, you said you have a converting advantage into a win is an issue, and the other is time management, or what was the other issue?
I said that I have observed that during winning positions, I want to play much more safer lines, and I'm not able to calculate very concretely because of that.
Okay. He wants. Yes, sir.
Yes, I understand. Yes. So what you can do is one, work on solving puzzles. So your calculation skill is up to the mark. When you have to calculate, you are able to do it. That is one. The second is try to take some games of good players. For example, Fischer, Carlsen, Karpov, Smyslov. Like, they are all very good technique. They have very good technique. When they get an advantage, they usually convert it into a win. So take one player or few players who have very good technique and observe closely after they get an advantage how they are playing. Okay, one of the very important thing when you have an advantage is to prevent counterplay. most of the time our opponent escapes with a draw because we give counterplay. Means anything good your opponent can do, then it's very difficult to convert our advantage. So instead of implementing our plans, we should try to identify any good plans the opponent has and try to prevent it. That way, we can restrict counterplay. We can convert more positions into win.
Great, sir. I think we're done with all the questions. Sir, I would request everyone, to turn on their videos.
Just last question I have, Srijan.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Ramesh sir, which one is more special, 2014 Tromso or 2022 Chennai?
2014, I would say both are very special, but 2014 was the first time India got a medal in the Olympiad. So that is first time. It's always special.
Sure. So
I would request everyone to, turn on your videos. Prem, you were saying?
No, just that's it.
Amazing.
Just 1 second. Let me remove the pin so that we can have the screenshot.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, last call, 1. All right, we have the screenshot. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in today. We really appreciate all your time and what you're doing for the Indian chess and the global chess. It was really a great honor to have you here on our tournament. Prem, if anything you want to add here?
No, sir. Just that a huge thank you for your time. We are honored to have you with us. And very frankly, on a personal note, sir, there were so many mistakes that I usually do because I am a player who started playing in the lockdown itself. So all these mistakes I have been doing continuously for the past 2 years and have been stuck at a plateaued rating of, you can say, around 1800 on chess.com. So definitely I hope I'll improve after that. And so does everyone in all the participants. So huge thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you
sir.
for attending the session.
Yeah.
Have a great future. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. So that's a wrap, everyone. It was RB Ramesh Sir, the coach of Indian national chess team, who brought 2 medals, 2 Olympiad medals, and more than 100 medals at the World Championships on different age groups. So that's it for today. Do join us at 6:45 for Chess Masters Premier League Day 3, where 16 more teams battle it out to qualify for the knockouts. Let's see who becomes the chess masters for 2023, which is the best university, which is the best chess university. This is a battle for that with a whopping prize fund of 3.3 lakh rupees. A huge thanks to our sponsors as well, chesslist.com, the co-organizers and the title sponsors, Chessmood, the chess learning partner, and Paramount is the chess goodies partner. That's a wrap. See you at 6:45.